Eleanor Walsh had lived in Colorado Springs for 35 years. She'd seen hailstorms punch dents into cars. She'd watched dry summers turn lawns into crunchy yellow carpets, and she'd learned that Colorado water had an attitude all its own. But none of that ever bothered her, until the morning her shower glass betrayed her. It was a Tuesday. A quiet, easy morning. The kind where the world feels slow and the sunlight comes in soft. Eleanor walked into her bathroom with that half-awake shuffle. People over 60, master not rushed, not tired, just familiar. She pushed open the shower door, reached for the faucet and then froze. Something in the glass caught her eye. At first she thought it was fog, but it wasn't fog. Fog disappears when you wipe it. This didn't disappear. She dragged her knuckle across the glass, expecting the squeaky clean sound she'd heard her whole life. Instead, her skin scraped against something rough, almost gritty like chalk dust stuck to a schoolboard. It irritated her instantly. This wasn't how her bathroom looked 6 months ago, and Eleanor wasn't the type who ignored things easily. She leaned in closer, bringing her face almost against the glass. That's when she saw it, the streaks, the patterns, like ghostly rivers dried in place. Pale white lines running down the glass. Patches so cloudy they looked frosted. Spots shaped like tiny continents spreading out across the door. She whispered to herself, "What on earth is this?" And that's where the irritation became something else. Worry. Because Eleanor had always kept a neat home. Old-fashioned neat. The kind of neat where people walk in and say, "I can't believe you're almost 70. This house looks brand new." She took pride in that. It made her feel in control. It made her feel capable. So the shower glass? It felt like an attack. Her first instinct was the same as anyone else as she grabbed the nearest bottle under the sink. A glass cleaner she'd used for decades. Blue liquid. Fresh smell. She sprayed the entire door, wiped it with a microfiber cloth, stepped back, and gasped. Nothing changed. Not one streak faded. Not one patch looked cleaner. In fact, the rough patches looked even more obvious now that the surrounding area was shiny. "Great," she muttered. That made it worse. She tried again. More spray. More scrubbing. She pressed her palm against the cloth, putting her shoulder into it like she was trying to erase permanent marker. Her wrist started to ache, her breath got short, and her eyes narrowed as she scrubbed the same stubborn spot over and over. When she finally stopped to rest her hands, she squinted to check her progress. Not only had the stain not moved, it looked like it was mocking her. That's when she did something she almost never did. She went to get her glasses. If Eleanor was putting on her glasses for a cleaning task, things were officially personal. When she came back, she stared deeply at the stain again. This time, she noticed the texture. The mineral crust wasn't just on the surface. It was clinging to the glass like old barnacles on a boat. "Hey, she said, "you picked the wrong woman today." But as determined as she was, Eleanor wasn't winning. Not with store-bought cleaners. Not with elbow grease. Not with decades of house pride. So, naturally, she tried the next thing, Google. She typed, "White chalky stains shower glass won't remove." She clicked, and clicked, and clicked. The more she read, the more annoyed she got. "Hard water," she said out loud. Of course, everything in this state is hard: the soil, the winters, the water. But she didn't actually know what hard water meant. Not really. Until she read, "Hard water leaves behind minerals like calcium, magnesium, and silica that bake into glass and become almost impossible to remove." Her eyebrows lifted. Silica? She hadn't seen that word since high school science. She barely remembered what it was. But the phrase "impossible to remove" made her sit up straighter. Impossible? Not in her house. She continued reading, scrolling through articles, forums, Q&A pages written by frustrated homeowners who sounded exactly like her. People who thought their shower doors were ruined forever. People who gave up and bought new ones. People who warned, once silica bonds to glass, it never comes off. That phrase echoed in her head. Never comes off. The words annoyed her more than the stains, because Eleanor had lived long enough to know that never usually meant nobody has patience. She thought about calling her son, but she already knew how that would go. "Mom, just replace the door," he'd say. "They're like $200. No, not happening." Replacing the door felt like admitting defeat, and Eleanor didn't lose battles in her own home, so she kept searching. After 20 minutes of scrolling, she found something different: a comment buried at the bottom of a forum thread. Someone wrote, "You're using vinegar wrong. Heat it." Eleanor blinked. Heat vinegar? On purpose? But the person claimed that heating vinegar unlocked a chemical reaction that breaks down mineral buildup faster. They said hotels used this trick quietly for years. They said homeowners never thought of it. Eleanor smirked. Hotels, Well, if they can clean hundreds of showers, I can clean one. She clicked open her pantry and grabbed the biggest jug of distilled white vinegar. She had a gallon she bought on sale 3 months ago. She set it on the counter like she was preparing for battle. Then she pulled out a saucepan. The moment she poured the vinegar and turned on the stove, the smell hit the air sharp, sour, vinegar doing what vinegar does. Most people would have stepped back. Eleanor didn't. She leaned over the pot like a general studying a battlefield. The vinegar warmed. Little bubbles slid up the sides of the pan. A thin fog floated upward. All right, she whispered. Let's see what you can do. She soaked a towel in the hot vinegar, lifted it dripping, steaming, and carried it to the shower door. She pressed the towel against the glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Just a towel stuck to a dirty door. But then, something changed. A faint white streak began to fade under the towel. Not disappear, just weaken. It worked. That tiny moment of movement, that small surrender from the stain lit something in her. She pulled the towel back, looked at the damp patch, and her eyes widened. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't clean. But it was progress. And progress, for someone like Eleanor, was the spark she needed. She marched back to the pot, soaked to more towels, and plastered them onto the door. Then to more. Then another. The whole shower door soon looked like it was wearing a robe made of steaming cloth. But she didn't leave it there. She stood guard. Every few minutes she pressed the towels harder, making sure the heat stayed in the glass. She didn't scroll her phone. She didn't wander around. She didn't distract herself. She watched the battle happen. After 20 minutes, she pulled the first towel down. The stain under it had softened. The crust looked wet and dull instead of sharp and chalky. She scraped her nail across the glass and felt something unbelievable. The roughness was weaker. Not gone, just breakable. She felt her pulse jump. Oh, we're getting somewhere, she said. But she knew vinegar alone wouldn't do it all. Years ago, she learned something from a neighbor who cleaned old fireplaces for a living. If you want to remove minerals, use acid first, then abrasion. Never the other way around. The vinegar was the acid. Now she needed the second step, the method that would finish this fight. She went to her baking cabinet, grabbed the big orange box of baking soda she bought for fridge deodorizing, and poured some into a bowl. She added just enough vinegar to turn it into a thick paste, not runny, not watery, just heavy enough to stick to anything. It bubbled aggressively, little fizzing explosions folding in on each other. She smiled. I remember this from science class. She dipped her fingers into the paste and smeared it across the stained sections of the shower door. The bubbling intensified. Tiny pops echoed softly in the bathroom, like carbonated water, but angry. For a moment she worried she was damaging the glass. Then she remembered. The stains were already doing the damage. She wiped a small section with a microfiber cloth, expecting to see improvement. But she didn't, not yet. Instead, she saw the stain lighten just a shade, barely noticeable unless you were searching for it. But Eleanor was searching, and she knew what that meant. This wasn't a one-step job. This was a layered process, a strategy. Heat the minerals, soften the crust, break the bonds, abrade the residue, restore the surface. 5 steps, 5 battles, 1 more, and she was ready. What she didn't know not yet was that the hardest part wasn't the bottom layer, wasn't the top layer, wasn't even the silica. The real fight was still hiding in the corner of the glass, waiting for her. And it was older, tougher, and far more stubborn than anything she had tackled so far. But Eleanor wasn't the type to turn back just because the next challenge looked impossible. And this next challenge, it was about to show her exactly what she was up against. The stain that refused to die. By the time Eleanor reached the last corner of the shower door, she already felt like she'd fought 3 small wars. Her knees ached from kneeling. Her shoulders were sore from scrubbing. Her bathroom smelled like a pickling factory. But she wasn't stopping. Not after everything she'd already won. She moved the last vinegar-soaked towel aside, and immediately felt her stomach drop. Because this stain, this little corner patch, wasn't like the others. It looked different, darker, older, almost baked into the glass itself. She pressed her fingertip against it. It didn't soften. It didn't scrape. It didn't even react. It sat there like a challenge. She whispered, "All right, so you're the boss." She heated more vinegar, poured fresh baking soda, Made the thickest paste she'd made all day. Let it bubble and pop like it was boiling inside. She applied it, waited, scrubbed, nothing. Applied again, waited again, scrubbed again, still nothing. For the first time that whole day, Eleanor stood completely still. This wasn't hard water. This wasn't calcium. This wasn't magnesium. This was silica, the mineral that bonds so tightly with glass that most experts call it glass on glass. She couldn't break it with cleaners. She couldn't melt it with heat. She couldn't dissolve it with acid. This was the moment most people quit. But Eleanor wasn't most people. She stepped back, breathed slowly, and then opened the drawer where she kept every forgotten cleaning tool she had bought over the years. She dug through cloths, gloves, sprayers, old brushes. And then her hand landed on a small white block, a magic eraser, still brand new, still untouched. She lifted it, stared at it, and felt something spark inside her. Everyone says you're not meant for glass, she whispered. But today, you're working for me. But she wasn't stupid. She knew magic erasers were abrasive. Too much pressure could scratch the glass. She needed the perfect balance. Gentle circles plus softened minerals plus patience. She soaked the magic eraser in warm vinegar, letting it absorb the liquid like a sponge hungry for revenge. Then she pressed it on the stain, slowly, gently, small circles. At first nothing happened. Then faintly a soft gray smudge appeared on the eraser. She froze. That smudge wasn't dirt. That smudge was silica, breaking free, finally surrendering. She didn't celebrate, not yet. She leaned in closer, more circles, more smudges. She felt the rough patch soften, then fade, then crumble under the eraser like old chalk turning into powder. She wiped the spot with a cloth, and the corner glass glowed back at her, clear, smooth, perfect. She tilted her head, shocked. That glass hadn't looked like this in 10 years, and that's when it hit her. She didn't just remove a stain. She reversed time. Her bathroom, her shower, her home, the place she'd lived half her life, looked new again. She stepped back, looked at the full door, and let out a shaky laugh. "Would you look at that?" she said softly. "I won." The moment she realized her power. She opened the bathroom door and called her neighbor over. Not her son, not her granddaughter. She wanted someone who understood the stubborn pride of keeping a house running. Her neighbor leaned in, looked at the shower door, and her jaw literally dropped. "That's not the same door," she said. "No way. Absolutely no way." Eleanor crossed her arms. "It is." Her neighbor traced her hand across the glass in disbelief. "How did you do this? Did you replace it?" Eleanor smirked. "No, I fought it." And that was true. She fought it. With heat, with chemistry, with stubbornness, with the kind of quiet power older women don't brag about but always have. The fix she swears by. From that day on, Eleanor made herself a promise. Never let fresh minerals dry on the glass again. That meant a 10-second squeegee wipe after every shower, of vinegar water spray once a week, a full vinegar soak once a month. Tiny habits. Huge difference. No more chalky ghosts creeping across her glass. Her shower door has been clear ever since. Crystal, brilliant, hotel-level clean. And she didn't need expensive cleaners, didn't need a new door, didn't need a cleaning service. Just heat, vinegar, baking soda, and patience. Fully energetic outro. The final push. If Eleanor, a 67-year-old woman with zero fancy tools and zero help, can defeat the toughest hard water stains you can throw at her, you have no excuse. None. Your shower glass isn't ruined. It isn't old. It isn't just how it gets. That's a lie people believe when they don't know the real method. Now you do. The hotel trick, the mineral breakdown, the silica battle, the guaranteed finish. This isn't guesswork. This is proven. This is science. This is restoration. Do it today, not someday. Because the longer you wait, the tougher those minerals grow. Your shower deserves better. You deserve better. So grab the vinegar, heat it, wrap it, paste it, erase it, win the fight, and transform your bathroom into something that makes you say, "Wow, that's my shower." Go make it shine. You've got every tool you need.